Hello. Good morning. We'll be starting a little late, 10:15. 10:15开始哦。 are starting soon. 我们快开始喽，可以大家欢迎来到座位上。我们快开始喽，欢迎大家先入座。We're starting soon. Please feel free to get seated. Good morning. We are getting started. 我们开始喽。嗨，大家好，大家早。Good morning, Taipei. 早安，早安，早安。My name is Jackie. 我今天早上会帮大家做 MC. So hope everyone had a good time yesterday. Very exciting first time funding the Commons in Taipei. 昨天大家应该玩得很开心。看今天的人数 seems like a lot of people are hungover. Not here yet, but it's okay. We'll get started. Yesterday was very exciting. I learned a lot. 学到很多东西，然后很多深入的讨论。宝博士、豆泥，很多很有趣的内容。然后今天开始，开场会先由 Vivian 来做 opening. So please give it up for Vivian for opening.
Thank you. Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm still kind of hungover. So this is going to be a short one. I have a deck, I guess. I guess I do, but it's... Okay, I just want to run through some logistics stuff. We're starting today. This is our second day, and it's going to be a lot of workshop over there in the workshop area, starting 11. So today is going to be like a full 2-stage, full sessions. Okay, cool. That's on my slide. I do need that to remind me what I'm talking about. But what else?
Slide.
Yes. This is the same. 下一页. Okay, cool. Workshop, interactive workshop over there. Also, Hyperstar area is still on. If you haven't raced with someone on a bike ride, please join whoever and go over there for a quick bike ride and mentor Hyperstar to experience what people are talking about for the last basically 24 hours. And also, We will have lunch at 12, and we already serve coffee, which is a little bit different from yesterday, over there at the food area. So if you want food, coffee, drinks, water, it's all over there. Still, we don't have Wi-Fi. And 下一页 this is a venue, and you can scan here to learn about the agenda for today. We basically update everything on the website. The board over there, the agenda might not be the most updated one because we printed it like a week ago, but scan here for the QR code, it will be the most updated. 下一页再下一页 And here's the agenda today. Yesterday, we talked a lot about public funding mechanisms, specifically what Funding Commons cares about, and hypers and also DRIPs, and all these other mechanisms that we use for funding public good funding. But today, we're going to cover something that's very different. We will start with decentralized identity and even cover some part of AI, like how can Web3 assist AI to basically expand its own like application and everything. And also we will cover decentralized science. So the topic we're covering today will be a little more diverse. And then 下一页 we still have the exhibition out there. It's basically an outcome of all of our work this year with MODA. 1,000 years work with MODA. The exhibition will be about like Web3 infrastructure that we are trying to build within Taiwan. And there's going to be exhibition around decentralized identity, DAOs, and retroactive public good funding. And you can even vote in the booth to interact with the decentralized identity system that we are designing. So it's going to be a fun one. And 下一页 And thanks again to all of our partners and sponsor. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. And that's it for the introduction. Thank you guys. Hope you enjoy the day. This is the second day, I know.
Woo! Give it up.
Yeah. I know you guys are a little tired, but hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thank you, Vivian. All right, the first talk today we have is Clement Xie, who is a senior engineer IT RI, and the topic is Taiwan Identity System and Technology Development. Give it up, Clement.
Hello. Okay. Hello. Yeah. Okay. Hi. Good morning, everybody. I think I will be the first speaker of today. So I only got like 10 minutes. So basically, I think I will just give a brief introduction about the identity system and how does the world actually seeing the identity system today, and what's the technology behind it. And also, because in the next section, we'll talk about how does the DID will be adopted in Taiwan. So I will also give a little bit briefing about how does Taiwan's identity system is doing right now. Okay. Okay. Guess this is not working. Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, this is my agenda today. So the first one is about how does identity system development in international, and the second is about technology behind the identity system, and the last will be the Taiwan's development. Okay, okay. So the first one is we are talking about the identity system. Why identity system is so important? Okay. So okay, here is some key development actually in international right now. My job actually, besides working on the government identity system, I also do some fintech research, especially in Taiwan, about how financial system using the identity system. So the identity system actually have catch up, at a very high level, to see how does identity system will affect our digital era. So in 2016, basically, most people know the fintech era is about 2015. So in the next year, World Economic Forum already see a problem about when you want to do a lot of trading in fintech, the identity system will be a big problem. How do you make sure who will be the person actually doing the transaction? Okay, so they have a report called a Blueprint for Digital Identity. And the second one is about 2018, it's about World Bank. Okay, there's a lot of in the UN they were talking about because we have a fugitive a problem. So you have a people maybe will be crossing the border for right now the Ukrainian type of issue. So how can you identify that person is from which citizen? How do you identify that? So they also have some principle about identification for the sustainable development. And finally, of course, FATF. FATF actually is about anti-money. Okay, so this is actually, U.S. is behind it. They need to know who is actually doing the money laundering, like those type. So they have a very specific regulation about how you can register a person into an identity system. So this is more principle-based. But however, I like to point it out because when we talk about the technology, we need to understand there's a regulation, there's a principle behind all the identity system right now. Okay, so this is a World Bank identity system principle. So I just briefly show it because there are three basic principles. So it need to be inclusive, and you need to be designed by secure, and of course you need to somehow have some type of governance for the identity system. Okay, so for the second one, that's why I say no. Maybe for right now the warfare. So it's more. Sorry, you need to remove a barrier to access and use. So that's why identity system is very important right now. So a lot of nation in the is paying the designing principle for their identity system. And the second one is about FATF. I want to show is you can see when you actually register identity in an identity system, you need to ensure you have some kind of proofing. You need to have some kind of binding. Then you can actually using it. Right now, I know DID or the blockchain's identity or address. We don't have this type of the proofing right now. But however, in the national ID, national identification, you need to have this type of the proofing and the bounding process to ensure you are the right person to using this identity. Okay, so finally, then you can use whatever potential create in this identity system for your authentication. Okay, so what does this component actually tell you? The identity system need to cover this process. Okay, so let's talk about technology development behind it. Okay, as you can see, identity system actually cover a lot of standards. Okay, authentication just one of that. So identification, first of course you need to have some type of proofing process. This will be based by the NIST 800-63, or you can use ISO 29115. Okay, standard actually for this type of proof process. Then once you get it, you have some type of credential, then you are entering, you use it for your authentication. And finally, you need to make sure you have some type of confirmation. Maybe you will use this authentication or use e-signature to confirm whatever transaction you are making. Okay, so as you can see, identity system will cover the identification, also will be covering the confirmation of the transaction or whatever process you are be using it. So this will be the overall identity system. The DID actually we are talking about is kind of different. I will explain later. So the enterprise or government or e-commerce will all using this standard try to know combining the process and the standard to make sure your identity system is working. Okay, so right now, all the identity system actually is all based on the certification cryptographic, and also based on the public key infrastructure. Okay, so right now, by generating the private key and public key, we have a PKI type of identity system. Or we are using FIDO right now. We are using the mobile type of identity system. So it's called federated. Okay, so we have especially in the international, we have a different kind of identity service provider. Actually, it's not government based. Okay, it's more commerce based. They are providing the identity. So they are trying to using a different using a FIDO, combining with your the fingerprint signature, biometric signature, okay, and to make sure who you are. Then all the identity service provider all together, they will try to form a federation model so that they can cross-authenticate each other. Okay, so this will be like a federate model. And finally, this will be probably what we're talking about is what the DID, distributed identity. Okay, because most of the PKI will be centralizing, but to the DID, we want to bring back the data ownership back to the people. So same thing about identity. So how to know to match up the process I say, okay, and into the blockchain. This will be the big problem about it. So I think people will hear a lot about that today about the DID. Okay, so also please think about one thing is in the identity system we need to think about the authentication model is who will be the holder. Okay, the user will be the holder owning the certificate or digital certificate for no authenticate. But however, we have the government who will be the issuer, who will be issued this digital credential for authentication, and who will be a relying party for verification. And also, how does the infrastructure will be affecting the identity system is also important. So that's why I like to give the audience about background. How does in the designing principle back to who will be the role in this ecosystem, and finally the technology behind it and how it will work to make sure the identity system is good enough and also trustable. Okay, finally, last slide. In Taiwan identity system, okay, I just in here I have shown it. In Taiwan, okay, the black one is actually the government-owned base right now. The blue one will be business. So in the beginning, we have a physical type of the identity system. Of course, the national ID, everybody carry it in Taiwan. Okay, so you have a car, okay, actual physical car for your identification. And then we'll move on to the online era, okay? So in this, actually based on the e-signature act in Taiwan, we have a certificate institution can issue digital certificate for your digital identity. Okay, so this is called a national personal certificate. In Chinese, 就自然人凭证. Okay, so you can use this certificate actually for your online transaction. But right now, it's issued by the government mostly. In the business side, this of course, they can also issue this type of certificate. But however, most this certificate is car-based. So you have some kind of IC card to store your private key. And whenever you're using the transaction, you take it out and put it into the card reader actually for the verification. So it's 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 probably the most. So it's not we use it actually how I say it. In the secure side, it's okay, but it's not convenient enough because you need a card reader to make sure it's functional. Okay. So after 2012, I think we move on to mobile edge. So we have a TW FIDO. So they are combining the personal certificate actually combined into the app. Okay, so your certificate actually can store in app and combining with your biometric identity together. Okay, so we have a called TW FIDO. Okay, and of course, this FIDO actually using on the business well. For the COVID era, we are talking about we have a video recording or online onboarding process. Okay, so just give a quick summary. Taiwan identity system right now still PKI based, very PKI based. Okay, so we are just moving from the car base actually to the mobile base. That's it. Still based on the X.509 certificate base. Okay. Also, we don't have compared to the like Australia or Singapore probably more like Taiwan or UK. No, the identity system or identity service, they have an identity service provider actually can doing identification, checking and issuing certificate. But right now, mostly in Taiwan, it's a government base. Okay, so we in our ecosystem, we are missing the identity service provider role actually in Taiwan right now. So I think it's crucial. I think later they will talk about DID project. They are working with MODA. Later in the section, they were talking about how to combining the government side and the business side together to form those kind of ecosystem. Okay. One last question. I want to mention is Taiwan. We don't have like federation type. Okay. Maybe in the financial side. But right now, in the government side, we don't have it. Okay, so I think later today, like I say, you will hear a lot about how to combine those two together. Okay, yep. So that's why. So it's important you know what multi-universe you exist and how you identify yourself. So that's my last slide. Thank you. Woo.
谢谢工研院的谢先生。That was really interesting about identity from physical to online. And I think next we have Noah Ye, who will talk about DID, the next bridge of bridging identity to the blockchain. So welcome, Noah. Give it up.
Hi, guys. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah? Cool. So, okay, we can go back a little. So I'm Noah, and I think some of you know me here. So basically, our team basically recently is working with MODA on building on a couple of series of different experimentations on decentralized IDs. And so we're here basically. Clement gave a very detailed talk about how the technical side work, how the standard side work. Mine wouldn't be mostly about that. Mine will be how we think about the future of identities, how we think about the future of decentralized identities in a sense. So I do want to talk a little bit about how people define decentralized IDs, because there are a lot of different narratives around decentralized IDs. From Clement's world, from traditional ID world, people talk about decentralized IDs with self-sovereign identity, with all this data ownership, which is more closer to the European narratives. That's one kind of narratives. There's also the narratives from the Web3 space, right? Which is coming from a Sybil-resistant kind of identity solutions, how we can best represent ourselves as human beings, how we do proof of humanity, so resources can come to every single person in a very fair way. And there's also the kind of narrative that's a lot more philosophical. The sociologists, the economists talk about identities in a more plural, more relational sense, in a sense that identity is basically your identity doesn't exist. You don't if not about the connections around you, if it's not about relationships around you, if not about the actions you take in this world. So there are a lot of different narratives coming together into this DID, decentralized ID space, which is all coming to the same space. There are overlaps, but they're not completely the same. And it's helpful to clarify because then we have context of what kind of space, what kind of scenarios that we're operating with these DID solutions. And to give more context, those were the current scenarios and the current narratives, right? And given, I'll give you also a bit of history in the past 100 years. Hannah Arendt basically talked about IDs as the right to have rights. So she's talking about this in a more context of an individual in a political community. How do you, to receive rights from the government, how do you have, we have obligations as well, right? So the ID, the purpose and the role of an ID is to form that relationship with the government. And so that's that's like 80 years ago, that's that was the definition. And World Bank, UN gave this 2030, every single person on this earth has to have legal identity. And you can see the narrative changes a bit. It becomes basic human rights somehow, right? So it changes a little bit. And then it goes to the Web3 space. We have a lot more different, we talk about data ownership, we talk about privacy and all this. So as you can see, identity is not a fixed concept. Identity is a product, is a rendition of the context and the values that we have in our era and in our time. So that begs the question of what context, what values are basically shaping our identity systems for the future. Why do we need the next ID system? Why do we need decentralized ID systems? So a couple of different global contexts. So the first one, of course, privacy, right? GDPR is a very good movement. However, it might not be enough. We might need something more fundamental that's embedded in our identity systems to better protect our data, to better protect our privacy. So that is certainly one trend, one demand that's shaping the future of identities. The second one, I don't need to talk about AI disinformation. Everybody here is probably familiar with that front. But but I'll talk about a story. So there were two researchers, maybe 6 years ago. This is pre-ChatGPT, right? So they did a research which sent 7,000 emails to around 1,000 legislators. Half of them are written by AI, half of them are written by human beings. The legislators have no idea which are from AI, which are from, and if you think about it, now everyone can send 7,000 emails to legislators. So under this context, that directly affects our democracy, right? That directly affects how the society actually works directly. So that is a big problem. How do we better represent ourselves as human beings, also as citizens? So that is a problem. The third one is the identity plight of international refugees. So this is a big problem because this doesn't seem that immediate for all of us. And when we look at the word refugees, we think about war, we think about political refugees. But the number is that by 2050, there will be 2 billion refugees in the world because of climate change, because people are forced to move away from where they're staying, forced to move away from their homes. So how do we, under these extreme conditions, how do we help them to preserve the power to verify who they are? Because if you know a thing or two about refugee camps, when people cannot identify themselves, cannot verify who they are, when they go into refugee camps, it's not staying there for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, it's actually years and decades. Some people even stay there for 20 years. So that is also a huge problem that's shaping the world of identities. And that is also why the World Bank, United Nations think this is a very important question that we need to resolve. The last one, of course, there are a lot of technological promises, ZKs, blockchain, decentralized solutions that the blockchain community is bringing to the conversation. There are a lot of possibilities that we can build, as well as digital democracy, right? There are so many different kinds of, whether it be AI governance or not, the divided society needs to come together and form consensus somehow, and that requires a base layer of fundamental and very solid identity systems. So these are the context. So given those contexts, I think there are three things that we need to talk about when we talk about decentralized identities or the next identity system. First of all, we of course need to talk about control, right? Can we control our identity? Can we control the data that we own? And the reason we need control, given if in extreme circumstances, if we need to move out of our country, if war happens somehow, if there are some kind of crisis, control is really important. We still need to be able to verify ourselves, even if the centralized servers that is containing all of our identity are destroyed somehow, somewhere somehow, right? And privacy is also a very important thing. Some of you probably heard of this story as well. So when Russia invades Ukraine, they took a little part of Ukraine, and basically they ran a referendum there, right? And people go, and they need people to go and vote. But when they're voting, there are armed forces standing right next to the voting booth. So that is not privacy, right? That is not the right to basically being able to voice your opinions freely. So that kind of privacy, or even more, is something we must talk about. And the third one is interoperability. So I'm quoting the founders of Ethereum Attestation Service. So basically what they do, what they talked about is the DID systems that we're building up until so far are kind of like glorified, siloed, centralized identity systems because they need people to adopt their system, going to use their credential standards to form their own identities. But those credentials is very hard to move to other places. So we need some kind of interoperable standards like maybe ES and others to make sure that wherever we bring our actions, wherever we bring our credentials, those can be represented in different formats of identity. So those are the things that we're definitely looking at. So of course, there are myriads of different examples, myriads of different DID initiatives in the world right now. Some focus more on privacy, some focus more on certain scenarios. But all of these scenarios, all of these ID systems are built for a certain context, right? They have their strong suits and they have their weaknesses. The point is not that we need to adopt, there's not going to be a one single identity standard in the future. It's about we having a lot of different identities that can interoperable with each other. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, next. Okay, the Taiwan context. So, So what drives DID adoptions? So as you can imagine, DIDs probably will be a new form of ID systems, and it takes some attractions or it takes some fear for people to convert into a new ID system because that's the entry barrier, right? So we talked to some companies who are running DID solutions, building DID solutions on the ground. When they talk to their users about the core key factor, the core advantages of DIDs, including control, including privacy, it's actually very hard in a relatively peaceful society to convert users, to get them to jump on to a new ID system. Although that people still think that's very important, but to converting people to this new system is relatively hard. And when we talk about interoperability, if interoperability is more about network effects, right? If you have more scenarios that can build up on it, if you have more people that can build up on it, then it becomes an attraction. But to get to that point, there are certain steps we need to take. There are a long way to go. So of course, it's a little hard for us to push forward a new ID systems, especially not forcefully in Taiwan, especially if it's opt-in. W3C standard, they suggested many different scenarios that we can adopt. These scenarios are all very logical. But on the other side, when it comes to a local context, it may not be that practical because the adoption, dynamic of that adoption, how people are going to use this. For example, they're basically EIDAS and their DID standard is pushing forward their college certificates as a DID credential, right? And that is, of course, one scenario that makes perfect sense. However, if you only have a couple of schools jumping on board using these credentials, then that's not enough network effect for the future employers to look at this and say, okay, you're going to be employed, right? So these are the things that we're basically looking at. What are the starting points for DID solutions like the ones in Taiwan can start? So we look at a couple of, there are two interesting contexts in Taiwan that may fit the narratives of DIDs. The first one is a little darker, so it is the political struggle of Taiwan. We all know, we all understand that there is always the possibility of a potential war that can be a problem in Taiwan. I won't go into the political side, of course, but on the other side, on the brighter side, there's very vibrant civic participation in Taiwan. There's very vibrant policy deliberation processes that's being done in Taiwan. There's very vibrant open source communities like GovZero in Taiwan. So those are the things that we can build upon, and we can build more experience upon. And so the directions, the strategies that we're employing, on one side, of course, we're trying to build resilience into decentralized ID systems or Taiwanese ID systems but how to do that, of course, is a problem we'll talk about it in a bit. But how do we build resilience into ID systems? So when crises come, when something happens, we can preserve a certain rights that we value. And on the other hand, how might we supercharge the existing democratic these experiments, social experiments in Taiwan that's already ongoing, that's already gotten a lot of attention internationally? How do we continue to lead on that front? Because no matter what it is, it can be quadratic funding, it can be quadratic voting, collusion-resistant experiment, it can also be AI deliberation platforms. All of these requires a very fundamental layer of a sound ID system for all of these systems to work. So how might we achieve that? So let me give you two examples. So on one side, the demand and the need for example, control and privacy as mentioned, in peaceful times, people don't convert over that. People care about those, but people don't convert as much. But those needs will rise when crises happen. Right. So how might we build a system to onboard all the traditional identity formats into a decentralized formats at that moment, given that time window, securely and fastly? So basically, we can infuse resilience into everyone's identity systems. So the design will be trying to get as much identity systems on board to be in a decentralized way. Another is, how do we build this system to make sure that the transfer is fast enough, is secure enough, so when something happens, then we can cope with. And this kind of system also is, like I said, the global situation of refugees, of people moving out of their country. All of these can be a system that those situations can adopt as well. On the other hand, AI-powered deliberation platform, if in case you guys don't know what this is, so it's, for example, citizens given their opinions on a political policy, and then these opinions gets grouped, gets clustered into different clusters, and so we have a big representation of what the community or what the society think about a specific issue. And so we can find a way to reach consensus somehow. And that if the fundamental layer, if the AI, if the IDs, some of the IDs are represented by AI, some of the IDs are represented by people who are not from this country, then it becomes a problem because that is not a representation of what the society thinks. Right. So these are the things that we're thinking about, and if we do more of these democratic experiments based on DIDs, then we have more social experience stories to tell, and more implementation of how DIDs can work in our real society. So basically, that's the whole presentation. And my point is that DIDs it's probably not one system. Right? DIDs, it should be based on local context, based on local need. There will be myriads of ID systems that will sprung up and serve different scenarios. However, the point is, how do all of these different ID systems, how do these credentials work across different boards so we can bring our credential, we can bring our identities to different formats, to different scenarios. How does the interoperability work? And build an ID ecosystem instead of an ID system. So that will be my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Noah. I love how you talked about the dark, bright, and a very optimistic future, and a plurality future for digital identity. So the next talk, it will be in Mandarin. So if you need a translating device, feel free to grab one in the front. And I think whoever did the programming did a really great job from starting off with the tech side of DID from Clement, and then into the global context of DID from Noah to the local context in Taiwan. And next, we'll be talking about AI, where Noah mentioned that a really strong use case for AI, for DID will be in the AI infrastructure. Yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce the next panel. We'll be talking about how can Web3 be the infrastructure of AI applications. And we have moderator Li Ying, who is the general counsel of AppWorks Accelerator, who's also the organizer and host of a really famous book club called Web3 for All. And they talk about Web3, AI, and even had the pleasure of inviting Vitalik to join one of the book club discussions. On the panel, we have Tammy and Isabel. Tammy Yang is the founder of Numbers Protocol, and Numbers Protocol is an open and decentralized network to ensure provenance for all types of creative work by humans and AI. And Isabel is a lawyer and contributor at JDingV. She's what we call one of the OGs of GovZero, JDingV. And yeah, she's also part of AI Academy. So go ahead. We give it up for the panel.
好，大家早安，我是丽颖。我有点失望，因为昨天 Jackie 就警告我说，他很高兴今天他负责那个 MC， 他会讲很多冷笑话，我就说 Please don't， 然后结果他就这么没讲，很失望。可是其实我在想说，为什么会失望啊？就是其实现在看笑话，你看 ChatGPT 或 Grok 就很多好笑的，可是 Jackie 讲的应该就是不一样。其实就算他讲的不好笑，我觉得我也会尴尬笑。所以我觉得那个感觉就是人跟人的之间的这个互动，还有人跟机器或机器跟机器之间，真的就是这么的不一样哦。我觉得如果用一个字代表的话，可能讲的就是 humanity。那早上的时候 ，Vivian 介绍今天的这个 agenda 非常的 diverse。但我不晓得大家有没有发现哦，不只是 agenda， 其实我们这2天的活动的 audience 也非常的 diverse， 你们有注意到吗？大家有跟旁边左边右边的朋友们打个招呼聊聊天吗？其实你们一定有注意到啦，就是我们今天讲者啊，高兴讲中文就讲中文，讲英文就讲英文啊，因为我们有非常非常厉害的这个即时口译的伙伴啊。那所以可见这场活动就是真的，对，掌声鼓励一下。他们真的很厉害哦，我们就是好几个那个 speaker 都说我们要测看他们能不能翻出这么难的东西，比如说，今天的伙伴大家都很强啊，等一下大家听一下是怎么翻的。那伙伴们来自世界各地，是我们觉得很惊喜的一件事情。可是你们有没有发现，昨天跟今天啊，我看到好几位所谓呢来自币圈的朋友，大家知道其实这个很不寻常哦，因为以往大家会说 有区分这个 crypto side 跟 blockchain side， 币圈跟链圈，大家好像比较不太说话。可是我们的活动竟然有好几位这个币圈的大神他们莅临啊！我是说，为什么你们来？就是开玩笑，就是有点排挤他们。他们说没有，因为我觉得这个话题很有意义，然后我觉得我不懂，所以我想要来这边交朋友学习看看。这也是一个 diverse。然后大家有没有发现，其实我们在座各位观众朋友，你们的那个年龄差距也很大哦。你们看看有没有今天最小的来宾啊？昨天 Rene 已经带了他的小朋友来，今天我们也是一个 mommy kid friendly 的场合哦。那为什么会这样？其实我觉得，要归功于就是 Vivian 其实就是 Vivian Noah Style， 他们办每一个活动都是很在意就是 humanity 这个精神哦，就是欢迎大家一起来参与。所以啊，大家不要质疑说为什么今天我们 Funding the Commons 这个主题哦会有 AI Web3 这个题目哦，其实我们还是一样要继续围绕到这个 humanity 的话题来。对，那刚刚 Jackie 已经为我们介绍了这个我身边2位好朋友哦。我觉得今天就直接切入我的第一个问题啊，因为大家都很关心最近这些generative AI 的话题实在是太多讨论了。那很多朋友很兴奋，很多朋友很担心，包括昨天的好多讲者都在讲矽谷的这个EACC 或者是 Vitalik DACC 的这些论点。所以第一题就来请问2位 panelists， 就是你们怎么看这个趋势？还有你们觉得最乐观的想象会是什么？还有你们心里最悲观的担心是什么？先从要不要 Isabel 先开始？
大家好，我是 Isabel。那最悲观的应该是那个人类灭绝吧，哈。很多大神都签了那个联署书，说我们会有这个就是人类灭绝的危险。那其实如果在人类灭绝再往没有世界毁灭前一点的话，可能就是变成一个Matrix， 就是这个骇客任务里面那样的世界。那大部分的人都活在虚拟世界里面，那人跟人之间的交流变得很少。那实际上在做决定的那一群真实的人类跟甚至是 AI 在做大部分的决定。那其他的人其实就有点我怎么讲呢？行尸走肉的状况吧。这是我觉得最担心的。那大家如果我觉得我讲的不清楚，可以去看看《Matrix》这部电影。那最好的状况呢，我觉得是另外一部电影《Star Trek》，就是大部分无聊的工作都让 AI 去做，那人类可以就是尽情去探索宇宙世界。那跟不同种族的人都有很棒很好的沟通，然后是一个这个世界和平的状况。那如果不要那么科幻呢？我觉得我现在可以想象到现实世界里面是未来的 AI， 他们可以为各个不同族群、不同种族、不同价值理念的族群社群去服务。那有各式各样不同种的 AI， 那它的发展和形成的过程是透过一个 community 非常仔细的讨论，然后能够去反映这些族群的这个价值的一个 community driven 的 AI 在我们的社会里面，大概是这样。
谢谢 Isabel。Tammy 你觉得呢？
那我也先讲悲观的部分好了。因为我是念物理出身的，所以其实我觉得还好，没有什么太多悲观的部分。因为毕竟就是物理学家尝试了毁灭世界过很多次了，所以我们现在都还活着，所以我想应该就是技术，我想人类的社会跟科技的发展，可能就是一直在即将毁灭当中，然后又不小心又过了，然后就下一个。对，那不过我觉得还是会有一些确实是让我觉得可能会是一些 concern 的地方。那这个部分，我觉得比起人跟 AI 的部分，我觉得可能对我来说，比较会存在就是 这些能够掌握 AI 技术的人们跟尚未能够掌握 AI 技术的人们，那这两者之间的差距可能会越来越大。那又或者是说，比方说像在前面的题目都有提到，就是很多关于 DID 的这个问题。那甚至刚刚诺瓦有提到，比方说例如像在战地的地方，或者是有一些地方它比较动乱，所以这些人没有 identity。那当这些人没有 identity， 或者是他的 identity 非常难以被辨识的时候，他所拥有的东西，那甚至像是在数位的资料 footprint 这些部分，是不是也会很容易的被拥有 AI 的人所拿走，然后可能成为你的训练资料的一部分，然后成为你的语言 model 的一部分？那我觉得这个部分可能会是我觉得比较 concern 的地方。那但是关于乐观的部分，我想可能就非常同意刚刚 Isabel 提到的，因为我觉得 AI 其实应该说我们每一个人都有故事，那不同的地方的人有不同的故事，然后不管是创作或是我们今天在这里的分享，它也都是我们故事的一环。那 AI 呢，它不管是透过图像的方式或是翻译的方式，它透过各式各样的方式，能够让我们跨语言、跨种族的去传递这些故事。那我觉得这个能够让彼此之间更加了解，我觉得是非常有意义的事情。
我可以再补充一下，刚刚 Tammy 讲到的这个，就是有的会更厉害，就是没有 AI access 的人会就是被落到后面。这个其实是确实是我觉得最担心的是 AI 带来的马太效应。马太效应是这个圣经里面马太福音里面的一个故事，他是说有的还要再给他，没有的甚至连他有的还要再要夺去。那我觉得 AI 的马太效应其实是非常非常明显的。我们在一个讨论上面也提到，其实台湾有针对这个学生的这个数位学习、数位工具介入之后，学生的表现去做评测。那确实在前面的学生他是更往前，后面5%到10%的学生他其实也提升了，但是在这个中间的距离其实是被拉大的。虽然所有人都变好了，但是中间的差距其实是被拉大的。那我们大家知道，这种拉大其实会有很多其他的社会的效应出现。那这个我觉得并不是科技发展单纯本身会解决，它会带来不好的效果。所以这个效果我们要怎么去就是处理和因应，我觉得是非常重要的一件事情。对，那另外刚刚 Tammy 也讲到说，就是关于我们会有不同的故事，我觉得让我最期待的是，我们甚至可以跟过去有连结，就是过去好像跟就是对历史的东西曾经发生在人类文明上的里面的东西，其实我们没有那么容易接触，但是也许透过 AI 的这个工具的介入，会变得更可亲、更可近一点。对，那当然还有一种可能是，比如说像 Audrey， 他就大量的资料，他都 CC 零出来，包括他的影像、照片、声音，然后逐字稿。那我觉得他这么多的资料，也许会有一个 Audrey 的 AI， 其实已经有了。那在这样的状况底下，其实是不是人的生命得到某种永恒的延续，我觉得也是非常有趣的一件事。
啊，我听得很入迷哦，我好高兴，我们今天2位讲者都讲到这个问题。我想要讲一个那个 Vitalik 小八卦，大家要听吗？就是我们年初的时候有办了一个 Plurality Taipei 的活动，那时候 Vitalik 本人有来。那活动结束之后，大家不是就是他最爱唱 karaoke 嘛，然后他就叫大家，就是他喜欢在城市里面散步，所以他就说我们从会场走到那个 KTV 啊。可是他的那个步程很快，所以我们每个人都扛大包小包，然后进到 KTV 第一件事就是洗脸换衣服，因为太累。可是这过程当中啊，有一件事情，有一个画面我一直记得很感动，就是他在走的时候，大家不是一群人就是跟着他嘛，他到每一个红绿灯口的时候，他都会回头问说 ，Do we still have everyone？ 然后我就觉得哇，真的是那个是小故事大启示耶，对我来说，就是说科技的发展，大家可以走到这么前面，可是 Do we still have everyone？ 今天2位 panelists 就是我觉得今天提到这个点，我觉得可能不是这个30分钟有办法很快的有一些结论哦。可是我觉得刚好接到我们的下一题，就是今天既然要讲 AI versus Web3， 我们是不是可以提出一些技术层面你们观察到的，或者是应用层面，能够比方说在这个科技发展的进程当中，帮助所有的人能够跟上，或者是一些大家看到的 AI 的这些风险，我们有没有一些技术或商业模式能够去平衡、减轻或甚至是解决这些问题？
好，那我先关于就是可能在比较乐观的应用的这一块，那这个部分就是提出我一些想法。我们公司因为跟比较多就是在数位媒体这边相关的创作者或者是公司或者是新闻媒体等合作，所以这边就是说有一些关于他们的观点或者是实务上面的经验的一些分享。那这边我想要特别用好莱坞这边的案子，因为其实大家都知道，今年在下半年的时候，好莱坞这边就进行了一个大罢工。那这个大罢工其实不管是演员这边或者是剧作家这边，他们最后的时候其实都顺利的达成了一个协议。然后那达成了协议之后，这个部分其实我觉得就 echo 到我们刚刚说很乐观的部分，就是其实它的协议里面并不是说哦以后你就不可以用 AI 了，然后反而它的协议里面是针对一个非常实际的，就是未来的时候 AI 怎么帮助好莱坞在创作出更有趣的故事呢？那在这样的架构底下，我们应该怎么与 AI 共处？那它其实是针对这个部分去往下走。那这边就结合到就是前面丽颖问的，就是在技术上面我们可以怎么做？因为当他们签了一个协议之后，这时候大家就很开心啊，那就是终于我们的罢工就结束了，不管是劳方资方都很开心。那大家的下一个问题就是说，那怎么做呢？因为举例来说，像有一个很小的一个部分，就是说，它里面有提到，就是如果你今天是有一个人所写作的创作，那你付一个润稿费给我去润稿，那这样是可以的。可是你不可以，就是说你先叫 AI 写出一个稿，然后你付我很低的润稿费，叫我来润稿，那这样子的话是不可以的。那这边就有一个问题啊，就是说，当 AI 越来越进步的时候，那我看着这个稿，我怎么知道这个是 AI 做出来的，还是不是 AI 做出来的呢？那所以这个就回到就是 Numbers Protocol 一直在做的事情，就是在数位内容的溯源性上面，然后能够产生一个透明的、不可被篡改的记录。那我觉得这个也不只是 Numbers Protocol， 我觉得它是 Web3 以及就是整个区块链上面能够带来一个很大的帮助，就是重点就在于，当 AI 会广泛的应用在我们所有的内容上面的时候，我们仍然能够透过一个透明、公开、不可被篡改的一个沟通，然后达到我们彼此的尊重。那我觉得这个会是就是Web3 整体来说，可以在 AI 的世界里面有一个蛮好的帮忙。
我觉得就是 Tammy 举的这个例子真的非常好，我想稍微再多讲一点哦。为什么这个例子很好呢？因为 AI 会带来很大量生产效率的提升，创造大量的价值。那个 McKinsey 这个顾问公司6月的时候发布了一个报告，他们说在大概他们找的63个 use case 里面呢，他们认为 AI 会创造4.4兆美元的价值。那现在的问题是，这么多的价值会怎么分配？谁会从这些价值里面获益？我觉得剧作家这个是一个非常好的例子。他其实透过了一个就是罢工谈判的过程，让使用 AI 的主导权从这些电影公司的手上转移到了剧作家手上。所以当用 AI 的这个使用控制的权利，在这一个 use case 里面的控制的权利是在剧作家手上的时候，其实他的利益就会归到剧作家的 手上去，所以必须要去判别就是电影公司到底有没有用。比如说，他在他的谈判里面有一个非常重要的，刚刚就是 Tammy 有提到，就是他们电影公司不能拿 AI 生成的素材来提供给剧作家去修改，因为他就会给了比较低的这个报酬给这些人类的剧作家。那为了确保这件事，其实在他们协议里面有另外一个条文，就是电影公司如果提供相关的素材的是AI 生成的话呢 ，AI 生成的相关素材的话，它必须要揭露。那我在各种场合分享这件事的时候，每个人就会问我说：“那怎么知道？”所以这时候，刚刚 Tammy 讲的这个Web3 或者说Blockchain 这个机制，这个技术进来就变得非常非常的重要当然，有些人是乐观，有些人是可能比较没有那么乐观，说我们可以解决这件事。但是我认为，在去分辨哪些工作的完成，哪些 content 或著作的完成是生成式 AI 完成的，这件事是非常重要，因为它牵涉到这些利益的分配和主导权的问题。那另外我想要再提一个也许是比较远，但是我觉得也很需要大家一起想一想的是，生成式 AI 的工具，它会完全改变了我们现在的工作形态和工作的环境。我认为从过去 Internet 开始它其实就是让某些个人有更大的自由。比如说在 Internet 之前，其实你 freelancer 这种工作其实是很少数的，但是现在可以独立工作的这些工作人员的专业人员其实是越来越多的。那我认为这样 AI 的协助之后呢，每个人的专业能力会再大幅提升，所以其实从组织里面被释放出来的机会是更大的。以我自己的例子来说，我在上个世纪1999年的时候离开台湾最大的法律事务所。那为什么？因为那时候我看到 Search Engine 开始了，我觉得我不需要待在那个事务所里面，我以后也会有那么多的 knowledge base 的知识的基础来让我能够提供我的专业服务。那但是呢，除了那些知识基础之外，我仍然现在我还是会跟不同的法律专业、不同背景的人一起合作去做一个案子。我觉得未来会有越来越多这种 project base 的案子。那如果是用这样的工作形态的话呢，是不是 Web3 的一些工具可以进来协助解决这些不同的人之间各种合作需要的金流、logistic， 然后甚至是信任关系的建立？那我觉得这是比如说用某种道的方式，让大家能够在这个环境里面越来越自由的去做各种合作。那这个是我觉得其实也许不是那么明确，但是我觉得是非常有机会的事情。
谢谢我的两位 panelists。我刚刚看手机，不好意思，我觉得我今天最重要的任务就是要控制时间，因为我们等一下还有书记跟宝成的很精彩的分享。然后我真心的觉得30分钟真的不太够。引用一下我好朋友高崇建的话，他说如果 AI 就是强调这个提升生产效率的话，区块链是不是能够更为重视这个分配的民主跟透明哦？那我感觉我们可能最后 call to action 一下，因为30分钟不够的话，势必我们今天下午还有未来都会有很多的机会再继续讨论。我先讲我的读书会对，这2天大家都听到很多朋友在提读书会，就是有一个 DAO Zero Learning 的读书会，有一个 Web3 for All 的读书会所有大家今天跟昨天感兴趣的话题，我们其实每个月都有很 routine 的一些分享。我觉得这个讨论应该不能今天结束就结束了希望大家如果有兴趣的话，跟你们身边的伙伴问一问，他们都会过度热情的欢迎你们来参加我们读书会。另外2位也有一些 call to action， 我们先请 Isabel 讲讲今天下午的活动。
就是 AI 带来的影响真的非常大。那我们今天是讨论 AI 跟 Web3 的这个交汇处。那今天下午其实在对面栋的C2会议12会议室C2会议室里面有一个 workshop 的讨论，从1点半到4点，我们会去讨论更多的用 fishbowl 就鱼缸的方式，让大家更多去讨论 AI 的影响，那这些影响有没有可能用 Web3 的工具来解决？那非常欢迎大家在下午1点半的时候来参加这个活动，谢谢。
它是一样是双语 friendly 哦。
对对对，是双语 friendly， 我们也是有这个就是有特聘这个人内来帮我们 moderate。
真的吗？我以为是
对对
AI， 结果是 Renee 本人。
是的，是的。
OK， 好，那来。
我这边的话就是因为 Numbers 其实就是在做关于数位内容的一个溯源啊，使用区块链，所以在今年年底我们会有跟台湾总统大选相关的，那另外明年年初也会有相当多跟创作者相关的活动，所以就是欢迎大家可以就是关注Numbers Protocol 这边的一些新的 activity， 我觉得对于数位内容的溯源应该就是希望能够收到很多大家的回馈。那另外一个也希望请如果有兴趣的人可以稍微看一下，就是我们最近有一个 ERC 7517，那这个其实跟我们刚刚讲的有关，就是关于内容的 consent。那这边是针对于人类的内容，就是你是一个人，然后不是 AI， 然后你产生出来的内容，你愿不愿意让 AI 做使用？然后这样子的一个 consent。那目前有一个 ERC 7517，然后目前正在 draft 收集 feedback 当中，那也非常希望能够收到更多的回应。
好，那我们是不是今天应该没有任何现场很急的要提问的，我们可以会后再交流，谢谢大家。
Give it up。刚刚丽莹说我不好笑，让我有点难过，但没关系，我们下午的那个什么 workshop， 大家可以参加。然后下午的 workshop 其实取名叫做恋爱，这是个谐音梗，因为恋是区块链的链，爱是 AI 的 AI， 所以欢迎大家下午去跟他们一起谈恋爱。结果还是没有人笑，没关系。OK， 那我们下一个 talk 是 Mass Network 的苏基 Yang。Wait, hold on. I think you're after. OK， 所以下一场是 Mass Network 的苏基 Yang， 然后 Mass Network 是个privacy and benefits from Web3 to social media， 然后今天的 title 是 Public Goods in Network States。Welcome, Suji.
Hello. 对，谢谢大家。I think I'm gonna use English for the slide and the common part, and then because I was listening to the translator, I think they're doing so good job. So the late half part, I'm gonna use Mandarin and gonna share some historical story, especially related to Taiwan. So. Hello everyone, I'm Suji and founder of Mass Network. We've been doing decentralized social networks since 2017. And I think decentralized social network is the beginning part of a decentralized society. Eventually, we are all heading to a decentralized society. Now, in a decentralized society, we're going to have a decentralized government. We're going to have our decentralized nation, which is maybe you call it network state, whatever. So what is all these concepts from, and why are they important, and why are they matters, and what are the concepts and what are the roadmaps we might able to revisit and use in the future? So here's a little bit story of myself. I jumped in the crypto and Web3 2016 when I was in college and dropped out later on, finding out that Bitcoin Ethereum very interesting and start to create my own company, a protocol, Mass Network, and it was quite successful financially, and we start to find new projects and other common goods since 2021. So before that, I was actually a hacktivist before engineer. I was a journalism activist. So people who use the hacker technology to do hacktivist. It's one of the most famous ones. I think it's for the anti-96 movement in China. We use GitHub as a way to call people for action, and people all gather together to, criticize the overwork culture for like Alibaba and all the other tech giants, not only in China but all across Asia. So we did a license, anti-96 license on GitHub, and everyone was so happy, like, oh, we got a license, we have GitHub, and we might be able to do a revolution. I think that's a very naive to say, but I think that's a lot of people saying that time, and we got covered by all the global media, Wall Street Journal, all these guys. So then the thing is like, oh, okay, what if we really do a revolution? What if we really do a revolution? What if we success? And what is the thing we want to build, right? What is the thing that we want to build, and what is the ideology behind it? So in order to figure out that, we need to figure out, okay, what is a country? What is a nation? What that consists of, right? What's the power of the state come from? From the people, or from the army, or from a button that can control some like nuclear power? I don't know. What does the state provide for the citizen? For some cases, like I think some of the state in the world, they just tax you. They don't provide any service, but they somehow survive. Very interesting, right? So I would like to recall back to not only crypto, or not only Web 1, Web 2, it's pre-Web date. Even in the early days of the cyberspace, a very important masterpiece that actually enlightened me when I was a child. When I read that in the Mandarin, then later on read that in the original English form, the 1996 version, A Declaration of Independence of Cyberspace by John Peter Barron. Any of you guys have heard of that? Great. So John, he's the co-founder of EFF, and he's not an engineer. He's more like an activist. He's more like left-wing hippie in California, and he wrote this in Davos when he was during some meeting and traveling. Basically, it's calling that we're gonna have an independent government. We're gonna have an independent place. It's called cyberspace, right? And it's not invented by human being. Cyberspace and digital and electronic signals is not invented by human being. It's invented by God or Mother Nature or Father Nature, whatever. It's been there. We just put some signal there, and it's formed something that we found very interesting. It's like the new world, the new continent, the North American, the new continent is not invented by human being. It's just found by European, and there's people live there back in the days as well. So I think that's the concept that there's a cyberspace, and we should not treat it as something we invented. It's something we discovered. It's something we should governance eventually ourselves. It's not the nation-state government. It's not the industrialized government, the governance industrialized world today. And the goal and the battle is very simple. Like there's one goal, like, oh, eventually we're gonna form an independence country, independence whatever on the cyberspace, independent cyberspace. And there's one battle that we're gonna have some kind of civil war. Right, just like the American founding fathers is having. That time it's a civil war against the British Empire. It's a civil war. So we're gonna have one battle that's like in next 100 years we're gonna have a battle to all the old world people. That's like including all the nation states today. We're gonna have a battle. It's a civil war that to declare that to get the independence. There's some role models even mentioned by John Peter himself. In late 90s, like the cyberpunk movement people, the email list that might including the original Satoshi Nakamoto, and there's many other famous people like Edward Snowden, Aaron Schwartz. They're all in the email list. These guys are role models. They're not founding fathers, but they're pre-founding fathers, right? So what is about our generation? I think we are the grandpa of George Washington. Like might be the grandpa of George Washington. So the reason that George Washington is quite successful is like he's fucking so rich. Okay, he's like, dude, my grandpa is like so connected. I can get a call. I can get a telegram. The Telegram app. That time it's a real Telegram. So say, hey, Daddy, can you get a Telegram to the British guy? Say, send me to the army. Spend like some years so I can learn some army skills. Yeah, sure. And then you got some like decent land, house, family, or lands, farms. So I think we might be the generation of grandpa of George Washington, right? So that's the mission, in our generation to be the grandpa of George Washington, and the next generation be something different. So. And then what is the current stage, right? If we are the grandpa of George Washington, then what is the current stage right now? Like what is happening right now in this cyberspace, no matter it's invented or discovered, what's happening right now, I think it is colonized right now. It is colonized by the new East India Company. So again, East India Company is not a single company. It's a group of companies. It is not a bunch of national, state-owned company or state-backed company. At first, they are private companies. Until like after maybe 100 years after their establishment, the British Parliament passed laws to say it's like under control of the Great British Empire. But at first, it's a private company. They can issue stock. They can pump their shitcoin, and they can cut leaks. And if you sue them, they can beat you to the ass. So even the Sir Isaac Newton, right? He's the one, he's like the minting guy, right? He's the minting guy. He print a button. There was some pound, can be printed. He's the minting guy. He got problem with the stocks, with the shitcoins. So there's so many different East Indian companies. Or the European superpower have East Indian company, and just like today, or the superpower like the China and US have the East Cyberspace Company. So Tencent, Chinese East Cyberspace Company. Facebook, American East Cyberspace Company. Microsoft, they got both. Great. They can still operate in China. That's a miracle. So that's basically what's happening right now. There's so many different East Cyberspace Company, West Cyberspace Company. They borrow the sovereignty. They borrow the governance power from the government by a private form, but actually they are, a very interesting form of existence. And what they do is colonize the cyberspace. The only difference is there's no Native American in the cyberspace. There are native bots and native spams, right? That's different, and maybe some native, shitcoins. If you don't pump it, they're just there, but they colonize it. And then we become the peasants of the internet giants. We become the, in the medieval feudalism society, we become those who are under the control. And what is the stage right now? I think the first stage, second stage already passed. The first stage is, we just discovered all the cyberspace. Cool. We just, we have a good name. Ant Finance, Alibaba, like Microsoft. We have a good name. We just get some GR relationship with the government. We become the East Cyberspace Company of which country, and then we colonize the cyberspace. The second stage is we start to fight each other. You see, TikTok is fighting the Facebook, and the Temu is fighting Amazon, and that's all the thing happening again. The American companies criticize the Chinese, fight wars, say, oh, we cannot colonize your cyber people. So it's the same thing that they're fighting each other for a better colonization strategy, just like the French, the royal French family, the empire, and it's fighting against the Great British Empire. It's the same thing. Then the third stage is the local people, the native people. They start to think about, what do you guys provide actually? So if I use an Android phone, yeah, you got software, you got you got an open source system, OS, but it's actually open source. Why I just paid 30% to every transaction I made in the App Store? Right, and they realize, oh, there's something wrong. And even if I got an NFT, I got a token. Right? If you want to buy an NFT in the Google or Apple phone, you have to, comply with their rules about paying the tax. So I just say NFT is like the tea, right? They can't tax you because the British Empire cannot tax the American directly. They have to invent some commodity. And they control the East Indian Company, so they tax on the invented commodity to the middle class. They cannot tax people like George Washington's grandpa because they got connection in the parliament. They got a telegram to you say, hey, dude, don't tax my grandson. They cannot tax the Native American people. They cannot tax the DJ because they never leave. They never leave the casino. They're always in the casino. You can't tax them. They only can tax the middle class people that, like my grandma gave me an NFT cat, so I have to pay the tax. And that's gonna happen. That's gonna happen. So that's the stage 3. I think we are in the stage 3 right now, very close to it. You see, people argue about Apple tax, argue about the different kind of colonized East Indian Company beating each other. That's happening. And we are moving the power from the state to network. And there's many different books about it. One is The Biological Network State. Another is Julian Assange. He wrote a book in 2012. It's more like a dialogue about the cyberpunk, the freedom of internet. That's a really good reading. So that's very simple. Eventually, these guys gonna get independence. These guys want to have independence, and in order to have independence, you will have to have independence of toolings, have weapons. If you don't have your own weapons, don't have your own tools, if you're writing and all the all the things are provided by the British, Americans cannot get independence. The same thing happened for here as well, for Taiwan as well, right? So this is another quote from Cypherpunk, Freedom and the Future of Internet by the famous Julian Assange before he was arrested and sent to the, have a nice days in 8 years in embassy, now like again in jail. So he said that what is, I'm not gonna reading that, it's pretty long, but I think it's a very profound book. In the crypto community, it's underestimated. If you read Vitalik's blog, you should also read his blog as well. Yeah. So yeah, we are having a dystopia, but the cyberspace, if we have independence, is gonna save the ass of all our like problem. And then okay, how to do that, right? We have to have a roadmap. So have a roadmap. There's different versions of roadmap. I'm not sure which one gonna success. But here in Taiwan, I'm gonna share a little bit about the Asian story of how we success. So just some basic concept of the roadmap. You start your like this is like another like crypto story. You start your company, community, currency, country, right? You have to pretend you're a company first. Why you pretend you're a company first? So like the Japanese example and the Chinese example, like Huangxing, like when you get the primary school and high school is in the textbook, like Sun Wen and Huangxing, Sun Yongchen and Huangxing. So when Huangxing started his revolution, he sold his like grandpa's and grandma's lands, 3,000 acre, like shit, that's big. And then he said, oh dude, we're gonna do a company. Because like it's in the Qing dynasty, remember, you can't just say, dude, fuck the king. You say, hey, okay, we're gonna do a company. It's called Huaxing Gongsi. They're gonna do some mining, real mining, okay? Real mining. And then in order to do some mining, you have to have some gunpowder. That's, the common sense. Just like today, in order to do some mining, you have to have some computer power. So when the power is in the hands of people, you have the real power. We distribute the gunpowder to the people. So they want to assassinate Cixi, like when it's on her like 70th birthday. Obviously they failed because they don't have encryption communication at that time. They just yell to each other like, "When's her birthday?" And then they just failed. So encryption is also very important. Like, start a company and start a community. Maybe you fail, but they start a currency. So that time when like Dr. Sun joined, not the Chuang guy, not the famous Dr. Sun Yat-sen, when the Sun Yat-sen joined, he said, yeah, brother Huang. I know you got money. I got money as well. I got 500 bulls I got 500头牛 from my brother. Like my brother Sun Mei is pretty rich in Hawaii. Honolulu guy and the Honolulu king, and I'm gonna join venture with you. But I have a new skill you guys never have: inventing money, print money, coin. So Dr. Sun invented Chinese Revolution coin, and the Chinese Revolution 就中华革命债券。救国债券. With the invention of Chinese Revolution coin, there's the Republic of China. So without minting token, without the free China. Okay, very simple rules. Yeah. So start your gun country. Then there's the AI thing. There's the power thing. There's again the efficiency thing, right? People are gonna argue like in the last 10 years of the Qing dynasty, in the last 20 years of the Qing dynasty, in around like 1895 to 1911. The GDP of China, like Qing dynasty at that time, is booming. It's booming pretty hard because there's some AI at that time. They just borrow what the American, the European invented. They just get the machines and they produce pretty good. That didn't solve the problem. So I think the AI is not going to solve the problem alone. You have to bring the Web3 and crypto thing together, just like the brother Sun mentioned 100 years ago. So yeah, I'm not gonna detailize that because we have another like AI Web3 panel later on. Yeah, then what's the current stage if we put that model in the current situation, right? So yeah, great. We have some financing tool listing, right? That just the East Indian company got listed as a stock. We can pump our shitcoin, like the Revolution coin, whatever, in some shit exchange. It's the same thing. And then we can have our citizenship and identity. You can have the ENS. You can have like .eth or .bnb, but whatever chain you like. You basically get issued to a ID. You get issued to a passport. So who can remember your national ID, the full one, and like the usually 12 digits, or how many of you guys can remember? Great. I cannot remember my Syrian address. The same thing. Okay, we're the same. Yeah, and then you got the governance. You got the finance, because you don't want to use other people's money, even though you know your money is actually shit money as well. So you just pretend you have some collateral, right? Like the Hong Kong dollar or whatever. Like the original American dollar is collateralized money on the British pound. And it's the same thing. So it's like DeFi, you put the real money in, then you print fake money, but eventually all the one use fake money, so the real money become fake money. It's the same thing. So the historical example of like Dr. Sun, the Chinese story, is actually a DAO. If you ever visit Singapore, don't go for the token 2499 token events. Go to the Nanyang Dr. Sun Memorial. You're gonna see his story and his picture, the big map of the huge Qing Dynasty China, and then you're gonna see different spots that actually across outside of China. It just form different DAO. You just land a place. Say, I'm gonna do a new token. Okay, dude, I'm gonna do a new token. Like this is the Chinese Revolution coin in Japan. Just like YGG, we're gonna have different DAO here in Japan, great, Tokyo and Thailand, Vietnam, whatever. Each should have different sub DAO, and eventually these guys have 10 revolution. Everyone failed, you know. All the revolution failed. If you read history book, all the revolution failed until the Qing Dynasty. The mayor of Shanghai at that time was actually using the 铁路的钱，上海道台 used 3,300,000白银去炒股，然后亏了。对 ，then the Xinjun have no army, the army have no salary. They start to think about, okay, what's the problem with the stock? What's the problem with the shitcoins? They start a revolution in 1911. So yeah, that's a real, that's really proven track. Yeah, not that hard to to do. And then what if you are not really early in crypto? What if you don't really have a lot of fiat as well? You cannot really convert your thing to buy Dr. Sun's coin. Well, there's NFT. I mean, about the first NFT, very cheap. Only the minting fee, right? It's printing fee, very cheap. And then you can redistribute. Just like a lot of people ask me like, oh, what's the point of NFT? If I can just download the PNG from the website, I can screenshot. I think, yeah, what's the point of the newspaper? You can just copy paste and read aloud to your friend. But just feel the attachment is very different. This is like the original version of Dr. Sun's newspaper, very different. So in mass network, we believe only the financial independence of cyberspace is not enough. In order to do more, we need to have the independence of social network. From the independence of social network, we need to have the independence of governance, the voting. From the independence of governance, we're going to have the independence of government. From the independence of government, we're going to aiming our goals to the one final battle that eventually going to have the independent cyberspace. In order to do that, we do many products like the Mass Network, and we are the largest donor to the Mastodon, if you heard of that. We have our DID protocol, Next ID. We have our, you can scan the QR code to join our new Telegram group for the new app called Firefly's social aggregator. So yeah, I think the next thing is more about the content, entertainment, social. If you have that, you will have the decentralized version of Captain American. People are gonna love that character. People are just gonna love the new money you created. Eventually, we're gonna be one nation together. So yeah, that's the story I mentioned. And again, a quote from Julian Assange: "It is time, bro. It is time." And we will create a civilization of the mind in cyberspace. May it be more humane and fair than the world your governments ever made before. Thank you.
Thank you, Suji. Wow, amazing talk. Next, we have James Kiernan, who is the head of community of Octon. And the title of the talk will be Octon's Regenerated Funding, each staking for public goods. Give it up for James.
Hi. As he said, my name is James, and I'm with a project called Octon. It's an app that just launched earlier this year, and we're going to be chatting about Octon's regenerative funding, how we're using ETH staking rewards to fund public goods. And so a little background on me, I'm the head of community. I'm doing all the community initiatives for the project, which is really cool because I've actually been a community member in this ecosystem since it started. Octon is being developed by Golem Foundation, so one of the oldest projects in the Ethereum ecosystem. And that's important because our crowdfunding, you might remember Golden had a really successful crowdfunding event back in 2016, which we had a very large ETH treasury that was generated from that. And then a little bit further down the road in 2019, because the ETH treasury had appreciated so well, Golem became two separate entities. So Golem Factory is still building their initial mission, which is a peer-to-peer marketplace for computing power. And then I work over on the Golem Foundation side, Golem Factory is still building their initial mission. And then Golem Foundation is pursuing other utilities for the GLM token without distracting from that core mission that Golem Factory is building. So two separate projects working in the same ecosystem. And so when Ethereum transitioned over to proof of stake and we had this really large ETH treasury, that presented a really unique opportunity for us. We realized we could stake our ETH treasury and then do something really interesting with it. So when we were first thinking, what are we going to do with this treasury? We thought at first, we could return the proceeds over to our community. But we realized, that's not very interesting. And on top of that, the broader Ethereum community is probably not going to appreciate, we're just siphoning funds from Ethereum and then redirecting that back to Golem. So we realized, we have a really interesting opportunity here. How can we program our values into a mechanism that's going to be a positive sum game for both our community and then the broader Ethereum community? So that's where we're at with Octant. And so when you're thinking about what you need to fund public goods, obviously you need money. You can't pay builders in POAPs as much as POAPs are a lot of fun. They're not going to pay the bills at the end of the day. And then also when you're thinking about funding public goods, you also need to think about how you're going to be allocating those funds. And so it's really important to have sustainability. And then on top of that, I'm going to be sharing today the decision mechanisms and the trade-offs that we've decided that we have with Octant here. And so here's our idea. We're going to be starting with some ETH, and then we're going to generate our surplus through staking. And then we're going to capture a part of that for funding public goods. And we need to create incentives for both participation and self-imposed taxation. So I'll explain how that works in a little bit here. And so here comes Octant. Woohoo! All right, so we staked 100,000 ETH. We're using solo validators and primarily using minority clients. The health of Ethereum's decentralization, really important to us. That's a big topic going on right now. So if you're using Lido or Coinbase or something else like that, maybe consider moving your capital over to something else that's promoting decentralization. So understanding Octant though, so we have these ETH staking rewards coming in and they're primarily split into two streams. So I'm going to go over how those streams work and then show some visuals so you can kind of understand the relationship with it all. But we have our ETH staking coming in and then our user rewards are given to our users proportionally based on how much of our native token they lock into the Octant contract. So if you have 1% of our total supply, it's a fixed supply of 1 billion tokens, then you're going to be receiving every 90 days 1% of what we generate in our staking income. If you have 25%, you're going to get 25% of our rewards every 90 days. So it's proportional all the way through for user rewards. It's important to know that if you don't lock anything in, you're not going to be getting any rewards. And it's also important to know that we didn't want this to become a passive income generator. So you need to take an action when we have this allocation window or this decision window open. If you don't take any decision, you're also not going to be receiving any rewards. They go back to us to be restaked to grow our validator count. The second of the funding pools is our matching pool. Now that is determined, it's a square root function of the entire amount of our token supply that's locked into the Octant contract. And if I'm losing you, don't worry, I have a really good visual in a moment here to kind of show how this all comes together. Also important to know that we do have costs, so some of the rewards go to Golem Foundation so we can pay for the costs. And then with whatever's left over, as I mentioned before, goes back to Golem Foundation as well to be restaked. Again, growing the rewards for both public goods participating in Octant and our users. And so just kind of going through the flow of this here, I don't know if this pointer is working. No, I'll just describe it. So Golem Foundation, top center there, sending the ETH treasury over to Ethereum staking, which then drives rewards to Octant. And so Octant is then going to be sending those rewards over to our users on a proportional basis. Now that's determined, as I mentioned, by how much GLM is locked into the Octant contract. And so users have a choice. They can keep up to 100% of their rewards for themselves, or if they donate part or all of their rewards to public goods, then those donations are leveraged through a matching pool. So your money goes further if you donate versus if you keep it for yourself. And so kind of understanding how our reward pools interact with one another. The blue graph here, this is based on the x-axis is a percentage of how much GLM is locked into the contract. As I mentioned before, user rewards are proportional, so 1% of rewards or 1% of our token locked into the contract, you get 1% of rewards every 90 days. And then the square root function that I mentioned before for our matching pool, it's a really unique way to set this up, because as we get closer to 100% of our total token supply locked in, well then we would have to give 100% of rewards to our users. There wouldn't be any rewards left over for public goods. But we're really confident that we're never going to get to 100%, so we should have a nice solid amount of rewards to fund public goods at the end of the day. So that's good news. So as I was mentioning before, users can claim up to 100% of rewards for themselves, or they can allocate it to projects. We do these in increments of 90 days because we do have these rewards slowly coming in over time, and we need to accumulate a decent amount so that things are exciting for users and projects that are participating. I'll go over here. And so the matching reward pool, that it's really important to understand that those are funds that can only go to public goods that are participating. So users cannot claim those rewards at all for themselves. So it's a really cool setup because say every single user in a given period except for one ends up being very self-motivated. They keep all the rewards for themselves. Well, that one user then is able, that donates, is able to effectively leverage the entire matching pool however they decide to donate. So it's a really cool way that, irregardless of how users end up behaving, there's a very attractive matching pool to fund public goods there. It's also important to know that we have a minimum funding threshold, and one of the reasons for that is the last bullet point here, and that users can change their vote as many times as they want during this 2-week allocation window. We did that because right now our setup is gasless, and we're really interested in user behavior because we're really interested in seeing, because users can change as many times as they want, with projects being right on the cusp, will they decide to move their funds to projects that are maybe a little bit safer? Will they give maybe a little bit of funding from a project that's doing really well to a project that just needs a little bit of a boost to get over that threshold? We're really interested in these user dynamics and how they more or less play out within this window. So the not so good, as I was mentioning, there's a little bit of trade-off associated with this. This is a plutocracy at the end of the day, and this is by design. Anything that we do with the treasury that that came to us from that 2016 crowdfund, we have to design around the GLM token, and so this is one of the consequences of that source of funding. As I mentioned before, Octant is not trustless. It's only partially decentralized right now. We do have plans in the future to move more on-chain, but right now we are using our own servers for some of the aspects of Octant. The current design does allow for some low-risk economic attacks. We're pretty confident they're never going to happen, but at the end of the day, they still do exist. And then lastly, as I mentioned before, we do have to run these epochs of 90 days to bring ETH staking rewards in. And so that does present some challenges. I'm the head of community, and getting people to stay engaged through these 90-day periods when there's some engagement downtime, so to speak, it does create like a fluctuation in how much engagement right now that we're seeing from the community. But we do have some interesting ideas to spice things up to make things more interesting throughout the entire life cycle there. And so we just ran our first round, and we saw some really interesting results from that, so I'm going to share a little bit about that here. So we had about 14.3% of our total supply locked into the contract for this first round, which is about 143 million tokens. So it was really exciting to see a good turnout with this first round. And so the total user rewards that went directly to our users is about 102 ETH. And then out of that, our users ended up donating about 21.5 ETH there. So some pretty generous donations from our user base. The matching reward, so on top of that, the matching pool saw about 228.5 ETH. Oops, sorry about that. About 228.5 ETH, and so on average, our users saw a multiple of 41. So what they ended up donating was multiplied by 41 going to these public goods projects. So it was really cool to see such a large leverage from our matching pool. So we had 24 projects participating in total, and then 19 of those ended up being above the funding threshold. There was a bunch of projects that were below that threshold that right towards the end, we did see some of those user behaviors play out where some of our users ended up moving some of their funds from projects that were doing really well and giving some other projects that were just under that cusp, giving them a boost to get them across the finish line there. So all in all, we had about 23.5% of the user rewards were donated, and about 76.5% that were kept for themselves. So some more metrics here. The top four performing projects were Protocol Guild, Roadkey, Hypercerts, and Tor project. So some really awesome projects there. We're also really happy to see Tor project, not being in the Ethereum community. Really happy to see that, we were able to move outside just pure Ethereum projects there. And then some other interesting things that I saw. We had this mode called patron mode where rather than picking winners and losers, you could just donate your entire user rewards to the matching pool. And we saw 7 users do that. So that was really cool to see such generosity from our users. We had 515 users who ended up locking tokens into our contract and who were eligible to participate. And then about 347 of them ended up donating. So we did see some users there that didn't take any action. And as a result of that, about 9.5 ETH that could have gone either to users or to public goods ended up being recycled back to Golem. So what's next? So we have our next round coming up. The allocation window opens on January 17th. And right now we have an open window. If you are building a public good and you potentially want to participate in Octant, then you can check out our website, octant.build. Come and apply. We are accepting applications right now, and I would be more than happy to help guide you through that whole application process. Some other things we're really interested in and we're working in is bringing in more capital to Octant. We had this really big announcement last week with a partnership with a project called Diva. Diva is a distributed validator technology that's also bringing in a liquid staking token element to it. And so we have some exciting things working on behind the scenes there with Diva. So some exciting things to announce next year with that. As I mentioned before, we're going to be progressively moving more on chain with what we're calling Octant V2. And we're also researching different funding and allocation mechanisms. We've heard some feedback from projects that, depending on which or where a project is in their development life cycle, it can be really hard for projects that are at a much earlier stage to be competing with really big projects like Protocol Guild or these projects that are really well known and are doing really important work. So we're thinking about, how can we potentially run these different rounds depending on where a project is within their development life cycle. So exploring things like that. And then we're also going to be experimenting with running mini rounds in the middle of epoch. So as I said, we have these periods of downtime within the community. So we're thinking about doing some interesting things with the community to kind of keep engagement going and ultimately supporting things that really matter in the space. So yeah, that's what we have going on. I'm really looking forward to 2024. It's going to be a great year. And here's what our app looks like. So if you go to octant.app, here's what you'll see when you first come to it. Here again, the top 8 projects from our first round, we're kind of keeping an archive until our next round begins. And then when you're locking GLM into the contract, that's going to be the right-hand side there and ultimately where you're going to see. But yeah, go to octant.app and you can play around with the app right now. Pretty cool to play around with, in my opinion, but I'm biased, of course. So if you want to learn more, please sign up for info, scan that QR code. We're actually going to be setting up a newsletter, both based around Octant and then more broadly the public goods funding ecosystem. We have some really interesting ideas for that. So please, scan the QR code if you're interested in learning more. And then it looks like everyone's done with that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, James.
Oh, cool. I didn't know if I was going to answer.
So cool how you can fund public goods and earn ETH takeovers at the same time. That's awesome. All right, thank you, James. Next, we have Bao Chen from Volume DAO. And topic of talk is Founding the Commons, Karl Marx Legacy. Give it up for Bao Chen. Woo!
喂，好，这个题目很奇怪哦，在这边讲马克思，真的我自己也觉得怎么会有这种事情？那大家知道 Founding the Commons，这2天的议程到现在，大家已经不断的听到公共财，然后公共性，然后怎么样用技术，然后去募资哦，所以有公共性的一部分，也有钱的一部分哦，所以我在想这个题目的时候，我就一直在想说，怎么样可以跟钱和资金资源扣在一起，后来发现，legacy 遗产是钱嘛，但是马克思的他自己，如果大家听过的话，就是一辈子是很辛苦的哦。那所以他有没有一些 legacy 可以给我们，然后一些思想上的东西，让我们有些启发？我们来看一下。好，然后我简单介绍一下我自己哦，来自巴伦道，然后过去几年都在做艺术评论。 然后拿的学位就跟艺术没有关系啦，是政治方面的学位。然后然后我的 Twitter。OK， 讲一下为什么要讲马克思。然后其实是因为我们过去大家读书会都有大概提到，我们读了很多书嘛，然后总是会遇到一些比较左派比较偏社会主义的这一脉的思想。那其实大家可以想一下，在今天整个币圈或者是 crypto 的这个社群总是会有一些很投机的，然后只在意这个金融的。但是也有像在座各位还有这一次的活动主办方是关心 public good， 还有the commons。但是我就会好奇说，有没有一个再往前一步、再下去一步的思想的系谱？那其实有一个想法，大家可能听过，就是我们要把棍子把它用力，如果一根棍子它是歪一边，你要把它扳正你只能把它用力歪到另外一边所以其实我们如果要谈这种公共性，我们可能需要去看看历史上有没有哪一些思想或行动对于公共甚至是共产还是怎么样共享共用等等的去有一些考察历史上。那刚才大家前一位讲者书记讲到了孙文嘛，对不对？然后对中国那边讲到孙文，那台湾这边来讲一些这种中共或苏联以前在更早的一些思想所以我觉得可能是可以让我们这整个Founding the Commons 的讨论更丰富的。好，然后再来就是在台湾谈这个东西，其实大家可能都觉得要么很过时，要么觉得不相干。但其实如果我们了解台湾和中国的历史其实马克思的想法其实在过去是一直被打压的甚至国民党以前在迫害这一些台湾人的时候，其实这个名目都是用说你读马克思的这件事情来去当借口的所以其实我们如果愿意的话，去回头去看看过往的政权他们害怕的东西，试图镇压的东西，但是实际上在好比说对岸的政权在更早他们又依赖这些东西，那个根源到底是什么那为什么今天大家不会去谈论它，然后觉得这个事情落实到现实生活中就可能成为暴政可能中国的情况，可能俄罗斯的情况。但是在19世纪的欧洲，它真的是这样子吗？这其实是可以也是想想看的所以这个是在我们台湾和中国的脉络嘛，但是其实在西方也是一样，大家看那个奥本海默也知道遇到什么事情，其实都跟这个左派的思想，还有整个社会对左派思想的害怕或审查有关。好，然后再来就是我觉得第三个可以为什么我们要去谈马克思，还有个原因我们前一阵子大家读过一本书叫 Blockchain Radicals 区块链的激进分子或激进主义者。我们在现在大家在看这个去中心的网络、分散式的网络或 AI， 我们面对的是一个新的科技，然后我们觉得社会还有技术正在转型，但其实在19世纪马克思的年代，他面对的就是新技术的出现工业革命。然后工业革命已经在他那个时候已经大概快100年了，或者说50年左右。其实大家都那个时候的人也不断的在思考说，这些新科技会发生，接下来会怎么样影响我们的社会那所以虽然我们回去看19世纪好像已经很老了，就是说怎么还去谈这种东西呢？但其实我们的历史处境是一样的大家都在思考怎么样面对新的科技只不过他那个时候可能是我们想象的这个很乌黑的工厂，然后废弃的那样的科技我们今天好像是一个资讯科技但其实普遍大家都在思考怎么样面对一个新的东西。好，我接下来刚才谈的是为什么需要谈马克思，那接下来我很快的讲到他的文本里面，我真的觉得在这边讲到马克思的文本有点奇怪，但是这个很像是这个学术论文发表，不过20分钟我们赶快把它跑过去 第一个，我觉得关注公共性的这个东西，在他所处的那个时代，其实也是一个转型期。这个是前几年的一部电影，就是在讲青年的马克思。他毕业之后在报社当记者，然后关心德国那个时候公共性问题，工地准备被毁灭、被圈地的时候，他发的很多文章，青年的马克思那个时候是相当热血的。好，他1842年的时候，其实是他才23岁吧，好像对，好像才刚毕业没多久。然后他那个时候在帮一个莱茵报一个报社写文章哦。他关心什么问题呢？那个时候德国的农村，其实农村大家知道，以前农村是保有一个工地，让这个收成不好的农民农户，他是可以去里面捡拾一些他需要的木材，然后看是你是生活还是什么过这个日常所需嘛。但是这些工地在整个国家社会进入要到我讲的工地是公家的工哦，转型到工业社会的时候，还有德国的贵族开始投入商业的经营的时候，这些地昔日这些这个让农民捡拾这些木材的工地是完全要被消灭的。刚才那一部电影的一开始，如果大家有看的话，一开始就是农民在那边捡拾枯树枝，但是这件事情被当时的法律认定是偷窃了，就是 commons， 不管它是地还是今天空气啊水，今天开始私人的资本进来，他必须确立所有权的时候 ，commons 就会慢慢的消失，然后所有过去依赖 commons 生活的人，或者是以 commons 作为一种生活保险、社会保险的人农民嘛，收成不够的话，他们的生活会完全的面临就是非常困顿。然后我们会发现，在这个社会转型期，它会连法律也跟着开始，我们用中国的话出台很多关于所有权的确立、私人财产各种法律的确立哦。那个时候，马克思就是针对这个林木窃盗法，他写了文章哦，就是去关心为什么公共性的东西现在开始丧失了。好，刚才是其中一个，我们待会还会看到，我现在在做的都是一个历史的类比哦，就是说我们现在关注的东西，在马克思那边可以看到什么迹象。那这个我相信是过去几个月来大家都会遇到的这个效用加速啊，然后科技乐观啊，然后 DA 啊，对啊，还有 degrowth，OK， 这些术语其实也都可以在马克思他那个时候的想法当中找到一些迹象哦。第一个，我们来看，这个是他在《资本论》第1卷里面讲的，他在谈说为什么，其实我们回去想一下，为什么有这个社会上是会存在牢固关系哦？其实，在他那个时候来看，他会认为呢，今天就是我们有一群人，他有生产工具，但是另外一些人没有。那没有的人，你要怎么样去生产呢？你一定要去跟生产工具愈合，然后你才可以生产自己的日常所需嘛。但是生产工具它是在社会上是被一群人所垄断的，所以呢，你要去上班，你要去受雇。那你在生产自己的日常所需，我们今天已经是变成领薪水了的同时呢，其实你还要为老板生产他的东西。为什么？因为生产工具不是 commons， 生产工具是这个社会上一部分的人所有的哦，所以你必须额外的在生产自己所需的东西之外，为老板生产哦。还是一样，我们还是在公共性已经丧失掉的这一个问题的脉络下哦。那这个刚才讲，因为生产工具的有无以及是否被垄断，它造成了社会上不同的身份还有阶级，那就是这一块就是所谓的生产关系。马克思还有另外一段非常有名的话，他谈的是什么呢？谈的是社会的生产力如果不断的加速前进，不断的提高，久了，刚才我讲的那一种生产关系会被生产力提高的生产力所颠覆。到了那个时候，社会革命就发生了，看到 begins an era of social revolution。 这个观点有没有大家现在的想法有没有？起点主义、效用加速，只要生产，只要科技，只要快速前进哦，社会的一切都会改变，包括刚才讲的生产关系，甚至是立基在生产关系上面的法律观念哦，这个，所以刚才马克思谈到了生产关系。但是他这边谈到生产力的同时，他讲的是生产力发生在生产关系当中哦，所以科技的加速，它仍然，如果你没有去好好的处理后面的公共性问题，它仍然是发生在生产工具被垄断的这个生产关系当中。好，简单来说，生产力它不是一个在没有脉络的情况下发生的。那刚才谈的都是社会的部分哦。马克思在更晚年的时候，他其实也关注土地和社会的永续哦。我们这边讲到，他发现呢，这个工业的发展哦，大家完全都把它对应到我们现在哦。马克思的工业的发展，你就把它想象成 AI 好了。不断的发生的时候，地球的永续如何发生？然后社会和自然之间的新陈代谢哦，它的代谢循环怎么样可以是一个 regen 的情况？这个也是他在《资本论》第3卷哦，因为第3卷他生前还没有出版，他生前真正出版的只有第1卷哦，然后第3卷是那个恩格斯帮他出的。好，然后他在晚年的时候呢，甚至跟俄罗斯的革命者对话，他提到说啊，他以前曾经执着的生产力发生不断提高之后，社会就会改变的这一个史观。似乎只是西方，只能用在西方哦，在东方，在不同的地方，它可能有不同的自己的脚步哦。所以我们今天讲的，效用的加速，生产力的迅速的提高，它是不是只是某个地区、某个国家、某个文化下的思维，还有它的历史进程，它真的可以全球都运用下去吗？好，然后再来第3个，我觉得有关的就是DAO 嘛，刚才舒姐提到就是这个同盟会哦，这个大家跟这个 DAO 差不多。那我这边只放一段这个马克思也是晚年的写的哦，那个时候的革命分子在德国哦，刚才我们讲一票人面对新科技，面对新科技底下出现的无产阶级，刚才我们丽颖律师还有伊莎贝尔讲到哦。AI， 如果你越来越没有跟上它的话，你可能成为某一种就是越来越落后啊。高重建说是 AI 的无产阶级嘛。那在19世纪的70年代，针对这个科技的问题哦，已经聚集了一群真的是革命党人。那个时候就是德国社民党。德国社民党到了70年代已经非常的强大了，他们其实就是希望非常有意识的去控制光速发展的生产力哦。那他们开始写党纲，觉得要怎么样行动？那这个时候马克思读了这个党纲，他觉得不 OK， 里面有一些东西要改哦，然后就是写了这个叫做哥达纲领批判哦，这个是在哥达这个地方写的。那他最后提到说啊，一个理想的社会，它其实就是我们大家都听过的各尽所能。按劳分配或各取所需，各尽所能，各取所需哦。它的前面还有一堆前提，有没有？我这边黄色的这个荧光笔的部分，黄色的字前面哦，还有讲说这个社会的生产力要够哦，然后脑力劳动和体力劳动的分工哦，不应该是这么截然的2分。然后还有各种限制解除之后，我们进到一个乌托邦的社会，然后它是各尽所能按劳分配的。那这件事情在 DAO 里面，其实大家知道怎么样去调控大家的分工，还有 DAO 里面使用哪一些链上的技术哦，我觉得怎么样让大家的合作 collaboration 是顺畅的。然后这件事情我们知道 DAO 大家最终的目标就是觉得社会上可能这个新形态的组织方式可以泛用出去、扩散出去嘛。然后到一个乌托邦的境界哦，好，所以我们真的超越了19世纪吗？我们今天会来看，我们已经在谈 AI 了，在谈 Web3 了，但是那个时代的人，他们也在谈那个时候的蒸汽机、火车，然后纺纱机哦。其实我们的处境是一样的哦。其实你说超越了吗？其实没有，但是有没有进步？当然有啊。我们怎么可能跟这个 蒸汽火车的时代还是同一个时代呢？那我们也今天瓦斯炉一开，我们也不可能去钻木取火嘛，所以生产力确实是不断的提升，然后我们的社会也在改变哦。可是我们其实是不断的去回溯前人、回溯古人的思想，因为前人虽然那个时代已经过去了，但是面对的处境是类似的哦。我们前几个礼拜读到的这一个科技乐观主义的宣言里面，作者就马上就引了 Adam Smith 嘛，对不对？也是一样，马克思在那个时候，他去这个考决Adam Smith 还有李嘉图这些人这些经济学说，然后想办法拉出一套跟他们不一样的说法哦。其实，在今天一样，大家我们今天聚集在这边，然后我们可以看到各派不同的思想在那边彼此对话，跟那个时代也是一样。好，所以回过头来哦，我并不是说马克思万能还是怎么样，实际上，他的这一套思想在科技的方面，其实我觉得并没有跟上。那包括现在左派的各种论述哦，其实在科技资讯的方面其实是相对来说是空白的。那反而是做这些科技的人，他其实从各种的思想领域去汲取灵感哦，无政府主义的，然后各种各式各样其他更广泛的左派思想哦，他可能相对已经忽视或遗忘了曾经有一个非常强大的典范在这边。那我们会忽视会忘记，可能是因为这个典范落实到现实中，进入政治领域、进入社会领域的时候歪掉了，然后进入更复杂的权力斗争，然后大家忘记当初的一些原理原则哦，还有我们跟前人一样的历史处境。好，最后就是简单讲一下，在这个Web3 的这个社群里面哦，其实我们不止这个挖矿、买币、买卖 NFT 或创作，大家也是读书嘛，对不对？我们读了之后才可以对这些我们现在这个世界有一些想法。那我们过去读了这些东西，接下来会读丙骨行人哦，然后 Web3 for all， 我这个 for all 把它这个引号哦，就是它还是回到一个公共性的概念。那大家如果要加入读书会，后面大家那个丽颖律师那边，大家自己去跟他报道哦。我先讲到这边，谢谢。
谢谢宝成，给我们这么深入的历史性的一个 keynote。接下来午餐 lunch is served on the side， 午餐已经来了，然后 make sure you remember to recycle the lunch，and make sure you pick up your swag， 不要忘记拿你的衣服。然后我们下午的活动会1点准时开始 ，so 今天的午餐比较短一点 ，so 大家可以 enjoy lunch and see you in the afternoon， 下午见，拜拜。